there's a saying that God is waiting for each one of us as if we're the only person in the world. And with God, with infinite patience, is reaching out God's hand to you, waiting for you to reach out and take hold. All right, thank you. Okay. All right, so today is the Earth Day. Do you know anything about Earth Day? Okay. So Earth Day is a day that is set aside for us to think about the planet Earth that we live and all the benefits that we receive from the earth, and to be mindful, to think about how can we love the earth back for all that earth is giving to us. How can we give back to the earth for all the earth is giving to us? So here are some things that, few things. There are thousands of things that we can do, but I thought about these few things. So let's look at the first photo. These are elephants, right? Roaming the savanna, Africa. Savanna means basically a grassland. And these are African elephants roaming free and at peace. Next. Oh, here's I don't know if it's a mother elephant or father elephant, but it's a big elephant. But one of the things that people do because of wanting to make money, they kill the elephant just for the tusks. Because tusks, they can make money. So some places around the world, people are willing to pay for their tusks. So they kill the elephant just for the tusks and let the body just rot. And when an elephant dies, the rest of the herd, they gather around and they mourn and they cry and they weep because their loved one is dead, who was once amongst them. And they put their, long elephant nose and they touch because they're so sad. So when we think about that, we want to protect the elephants, right, from poachers. Poachers meaning those who want to take elephant tusks. So there are efforts by people to protect elephants from being poached for their tusks. Isn't that a good thing? Yeah, I agree. Next. What are they? Socks. Yes, smallest socks. But I think it's been washed and it's hang to dry, right? On the line. So instead of always drying everything in the dryer, which wastes electricity or gas and adds to the pollution, the greenhouse warming that warms the earth, this is natural way to, dry things. So certain things you could just put it out to a line and dry it naturally. Okay, next. All right. So these are gardens, and do you see these flowers bloom because they are pollinators? What are pollinators? What live things that pollinates for flowers to bloom? You don't know yet? Okay, good. That's why you're here. Bees, red bugs, or bugs. Oh, what is it, red bugs? What do you call them? Oh, ladybugs. Ladybugs. Have you seen ladybugs? Yeah. They have a little polka dots, huh? Not all of them, but many of them do. And then butterflies. So they go, from flower to flower, and they pollinate between male and female, and that's how make flowers blossom. And so you have this beautiful garden. Can you see the bee on the left side? You can see it? Good. You have a very good eye. And when we grow garden of flowers or vegetables and whatnot, we are creating good air. Okay? Good air that fights bad air. And it cools the earth too. And not only that, it's so beautiful to watch. And all the, insects and birds, and they come and they find sanctuary, a place to enjoy. And we enjoy it too. Next. What's that? Do you see something?
A caterpillar.
Caterpillar, that's right. And what does caterpillars love to eat?
Weeds.
That's right. It's called milkweeds. So it's good to have milkweeds planted for caterpillars. And they eat them. Chomp, 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 chomp. And what do caterpillars become?
Into a butterfly.
That's right. Next picture. So they become a butterfly, in this case, monarch butterfly, and they're pollinating, and it's so beautiful, and makes all the flowers to blossom. And look at that, greening of the earth, and it's so beautiful, and it cools the temperature, and creates healthy air, and beautiful for our eyes to gaze upon and walk alongside. Yeah. So these are some few things that we can do to give back to the earth.
From the book of Psalm, chapter 80. Shepherd God, you companion us through the wilderness. You cultivate the soil of our goodness. You nourish us with the food of love, with streams of living water. Look upon us and see what love can do. Rejoice in the new birth that you create. Please stand for the reading of the gospel. Matthew chapter 22, verses 34 through 40, the greatest commandment. When the Pharisees heard that he had silenced the Sadducees, they gathered together, and one of them, a lawyer, asked him a question to test him. Teacher, which commandment in the law is the greatest? He said to him, You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the greatest and first commandment. And the second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these two commandments hang all the law and the prophets. The word of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God. You may...
If I could have a talk with Christ the Lord, I think I'd scarcely say a single word.
When I was going to the seminary, one of the theologians that we had to study was 20th century giant Karl Barth. And he said, when you preach a message from the pulpit, it says, carry the Bible in one hand and the newspaper on the other. And how is God speaking to us today? So today is that day where I feel compelled to do just that. I'm going to pass my Bible that I studied in the seminary. I think you'll be impressed with all the lines that's in there. Well, that is to inspire you to read your Bible as well. So on this Earth Day, I'm going to take this opportunity for the love of the earth, that we are going to get education on gun issue in America. In most of the world, going to the wrong house is not a deadly risk. There is a woman by the name of Denise Garone of San Francisco who shared this insight. She said, last spring, I was traveling with my Irish friend in rural Ireland. We were on a road trip and could not find the waterfall we were looking for. My friend saw a house in the distance and said, hold on, I'm going to stop and ask for directions. I was concerned and surprised that she didn't hesitate to walk up a long driveway, ring the doorbell, and ask a stranger for directions. 10 minutes later, my friend was still talking to the man who answered the door, and we drove off and he waved to us. As we were driving, I explained my concern to my friend. And she looked at me and said, Denise, we don't have guns here. But in the United States, going to the wrong house can cost your life, because we're awash in the estimated 450 million guns, and suffer from a mass delusion that a gun in the home make us safer. Next. Those of you may recall, there was an incident in 1992 which a 16-year-old Japanese exchange student, Yoshida Hattori, was shot dead in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, after knocking on the wrong door. The shooting happened when Hattori, on his way to a Halloween party, went to the wrong house by mistake. The homeowner, Rodney Pears, said he thought the boy was a burglar and ordered him to freeze. Hattori perhaps didn't understand freeze or misheard the man as saying, please. In any case, the boy moved and the man shot him with his .44 Magnum and killed him instantly. The killing and the pair's acquittal received a worldwide attention. In Japan, fewer people are murdered with guns in a typical year than in one single mass shooting in America. The database shows that this year alone, there have been more mass shootings than days in 2023. As of April 17 of this year, there have been 163 mass shootings so far. And we are counting. The Japanese government later prepared a booklet for Japanese people traveling to the United States with helpful English travel phrases like freeze, hands in the air. Because if you don't understand that, it'll cost you life. A Japanese professor said after the incident, "We are more civilized in Japan." We are caught in a spiral in which perceptions of rising crime lead more people to purchase firearms. About 60 million guns have been sold in the United States just since 2020. And this in turn leads to more gun violence, which leads to more fear and gun purchases. You get the idea. We have created a culture of fear and paranoia, created and fed by right-wing media, gun industry, and the NRA, where threats lurk around every corner. And ordinary Americans are made to feel that they need a loaded gun nearby, at home, by your bedside, in their vehicles, at restaurants, movie theaters, and schools, etc. For what? For protection. The result of this mindset, combined with our easy access to guns, are as inevitable as they are tragic. So, we have recent tragedies. In Dadeville, Alabama, recently, 4 people were killed and 28 others were injured in a shooting at a 16th birthday party. 16th birthday celebration ends up with mayhem. Next. In Kansas City, Missouri, Ralph Yar, a 16-year-old high school junior, was shot twice in the forehead and an arm when he went to the wrong house to pick up his younger twin brothers. Same number, same address numbers, but wrong side of the street. And he's recovering from a traumatic brain injury. 84-year-old white man who, according to the prosecutor, shot him from the inside his home through a glass front door. The man said he was scared to death that the boy was breaking into his home. Next. In upstate New York, again, a few days ago, a 20-year-old young woman, Kaylin Gillis, was killed when she and several friends drove to the wrong address. And when they realized it was not the right house, they were pulling out of the driveway, and the homeowner comes out and shoots at them, and he struck her head and kills her. Next. A few days ago again, in Elgin, Texas, 2 cheerleaders were shot in a Texas supermarket parking lot at night after one mistook the suspect's vehicle for her own, and guess what? Deadly mistake. The man got out of the car and shot at them as they were leaving. One of the girls, next picture, Peyton Washington, age 18, high school cheerleader, was hit in the back and a leg and taken by a helicopter hospital. She was initially reported to be in critical condition, and now in stable condition. Thank God. Next. Few days ago in Charlotte, North Carolina, a 6-year-old girl and her dad were shot when they tried to retrieve a basketball that rolled into their neighbor's yard. The 6-year-old girl had a bullet fragment in her cheek and was released from the hospital, while her dad remained hospitalized in serious condition in Charlotte. The neighbor who witnessed this said, "It is sad to see little kids scatter, running for their lives for retrieving a ball in the neighbor's front yard." Elsewhere in the world, brutes send their victims to the ER. Next. In America, we send them to graves. That's what happened when you mistakenly make mistakes as a human. Being in the wrong place, that we are all susceptible to doing. A retired nurse by the name of Lois Foley from Massachusetts said, as a retired home visiting nurse who rang many wrong doorbells and drove up many wrong driveways in search of the patients that I need to visit, operating for most of my career without the benefit of a cell phone or GPS, I often relied upon the kindness of strangers who unfailingly guided me toward my intended destination. It never occurred to me that I could be shot. An occasional frightening dog, perhaps, but never gunfire. I cannot imagine the stress that my colleagues in these visiting nurses must feel these days. Foreigners admire our popular American culture, our technology, films, songs, our lifestyle, but are bewildered and flabbergasted by our refusal to rein in guns. Michael Frost from England shared this observation. Here in the United Kingdom, once again, we have learned just another atrocity that we hear every day from America, this time in Alabama. When will America wake up and smell the coffee, stand up to the gun lobby and insist that the gun laws be changed? Until such weaponry is taken out of general ownership from public, these sorts of killings will continue unabated, and parents will continue to bury their kids to their untimely death. For a so-called modern society that has put men into space, you persist in living in the past with your preoccupation with weapons. Arm manufacturers continue to laugh all the way to the bank while you bury your fellow Americans every day. Wake up. Withdraw the rights to have unfettered access to guns and live a safer and saner life. You have the power to change the law if you have a political will. You have the solution. Use it or stop complaining, unquote. This is a man from England. Following every mass shooting, the GOP lawmakers in the Congress double down on people's right to bear arms by making it even easier to get guns and to carry guns in public places and without any background checks. How insane is that? So what they say is that these GOP lawmakers, beholden to NRA in response to each mass shooting, is to advocate more guns in the hands of the public to make our lives safer. And that is a bald-faced lie. As Judge Judy will say in the court, don't pee on my leg and try to tell me it's raining. Albert Einstein said, insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. Jesus reminded us, you reap what you sow. Those who live by the sword shall die by the sword. In our representative democracy, we can vote them out, those who will not lift a finger to enact federal common sense gun law, and elect those who will. That's how we are going to make changes. Why do we keep putting these lawmakers to the Congress to block any sensible gun law? Studies have shown that common sense gun measures could reduce the toll of gun death by 1/3 or more. In 1994, Congress helped push through a federal assault weapon ban as part of the Violent Crime Control and Law Enforcement Act. The ban was limited. It covered only a certain categories of semi-automatic weapons such as AR-15s. But it did ban AR-15 assault weapon type of military style of mass shooting rifles. So in order to pass the Congress and to appease gun right advocates, it had in its so-called sunset provision that allowed the ban to expire in 2004. So let's look at during the ban between 1994 and 2004, 10 years. In the years after the assault weapon ban went into effect, the number of deaths from mass shooting fell, and the increase in the annual number of incidents slowed down. Even including 1999's Columbine High School massacre, the deadliest mass shooting during the period of the ban, from 1994 to 2004 period, they saw lower average annual rate of both mass shootings and deaths than prior to the ban. The risk of a person in the U.S. dying in a mass shooting was 70% lower during this ban period. 70% lower. That's a scientific fact. That's a statistical fact. That's an observable fact. And if you think that person with common sense will say, you know, that's a good thing. That will save lives, especially our young people, our little children. You know, the definition of evil by M. Scott Peck is willfulness, the willful ignorance, militant ignorance. That's what he said. That is the definition of evil. Even though you know the facts, willfully refuse to accept it in order to push their agenda. The proportion of overall gun homicide resulting from mass shooting was also down during that period. So what happened when the ban was lifted from 2004 onward? The data shows an almost immediate and steep rise in mass shooting deaths in the years after the assault weapon ban expired in 2004. Next. This is a chart for adopting safe gun laws today. This is a current today chart for states and their status of adopting safe gun laws. The green represents national leaders in passing gun safety legislations. That includes California and Boston, I should say Massachusetts, New York, and so forth. Also, Illinois is one of them in the middle America, and Hawaii is included there. And what those red states represent, these are national failures, worst gun safety law. It's basically free for all, everyone for themselves kind of gun laws, where anyone can purchase guns and carry without any background checks. And they have the highest gun death rate. Gray represents half measures. They're sort of better than the red states, but not quite to the green states' standard. President Joe Biden said that he did all he could do with his executive orders on gun violence, gun safety laws. He says now it's up to the Congress to enact federal gun safety laws. We can adapt universal background checks, safe storage requirements, raise the minimum age of 21 for private gun sales, requirement for gun safety training course, as we do with driver license, an enforced ban on possession of guns by people with a history of stalking, domestic violence, and violent misdemeanors. And I would add, along with our President Joe Biden, ban assault weapons. It's a military-style assault weapons not needed for hunting, but it's a weapon of choice for mass shooters, because you could shoot that thing so fast with 100 rounds without interruption. Why is that available in the hands of the public? Can we buy bazookas? Can we buy tanks? Can we buy F-15? No. Then why do we need? Where do we set the limit? All states should adapt our state, California's successful experiment with background checks for buying ammunition, a 10 days waiting period for thorough background checks, and time to possibly cool off of your violent passion that motivated you to get a gun. And 10 days cooling off period said, you know what? I don't think it's a good idea to shoot her or shoot him. I came to my senses. Having instituted a number of sane safety gun measures, California now has a gun death rate of 38% below the national average. In red states like Mississippi, there is much more rigorous process to adopt a dog than to acquire a gun. Should it really be easier to buy an AR-15 style rifle than to adopt a Chihuahua? Above all, we must challenge the misperception that gun in the home make people safer. Yes, on rare occasions, a gun can avert a crime. But research have found repeatedly that a gun in the house makes people more likely to be murdered, not less. People living in home with firearms have higher risk for dying by homicide, according to a 2022 study by the Annals of Internal Medicine. The statistics show that when guns are used, 93% of the times guns were used either against oneself or against family members. By suicides, accidents, children finding guns, family members or friends mistaken for intruders, fit of rage, and so on. People may choose to have firearms for hunting or target practice or to protect livestock from predators. But given the elevated risk, personal safety is not a good reason to acquire a gun. Guns in the aggregate do not equal protection. Until more of us can see that, I'm afraid that nothing will change. You reap what you sow. Those who live by the sword shall die by the sword. Next. Because of our complacency, the leading cause of death for children and teenagers in the United States is now gun violence, eclipsing vehicle crashes. In 2020, more than 4,300 young people died in America from firearms. The figure in the Netherlands in that same year was two. Two children died of gun violence in Netherlands. Whereas in our country, 4,300 died. At this rate, it will take a couple of millenniums for the Netherlands to lose as many kids to guns as we do annually. We accept inconveniences when driving vehicles, seat belts, infant seats, no one in the back of pickup trucks, because these can help save lives. Why aren't we similarly willing to accept safe storage or universal background checks for guns and ammunition and red flag laws for people who are in danger of harming oneself or others for the same reason? These young people were shot simply because they went to the wrong place. And I think if only we loved our children as much as we love our guns, these lives could have been saved. You reap what you sow. Those who live by the sword shall die by the sword. What kind of world do we want to leave behind for our children and grandchildren to inherit? What will save us? What will save us from ourselves? What will restore us to social sanity in a world that has lost its way? How can we move from othering to neighborliness, isolation to connection, loneliness to community? How do we bring a healing presence to the world that desperately in need of it? We as a nation has turned away from God and made guns into our golden calf that we worship and put our innocent children on the altar to be sacrificed. Jesus was asked, "What's the greatest commandment?" And he answered, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind, and love thy neighbor as yourself. To love your neighbor as yourself means first, your neighbor is none other than you. And therefore, you cannot make the other an object of your hate, to dehumanize, to devalue, to kill. When you see another human being, it is to recognize that the other is none other than me. He is my brother. She is my sister. Fellow journeyers in life together. Let us pray. Oh God, with longing for earth's children, with compassion for the creatures, with hearts breaking for the nations and people we love, open us to visions we have never known. Strengthen us for self-sacrifice we have never made. Delight us with the oneness we could never have imagined, that we may truly be born of you, maker of peace, the followers of the Prince of Peace. Amen.
May the sweet love of God rest upon you as you go forth into the earth, and may all of those that encounter you experience his mighty love.